At St. Dominic, we give our students the best education they can get and equip them to reach their full potential and fulfill their dreams in their chosen field of expertise. Our education is beyond basic. In preschool, grade school, and junior high school, we instill the necessary foundation of a balanced EQ and IQ quality of education. We set the bar higher and make sure Dominicans excel in every aspect to prepare them well in their life. Parents envision their children to reach their full potential and someday become role models and ideal citizens of our country and even of Asia. This vision has become our mission since St. Dominic was first founded in 2003, and to this day, St. Dominic has mastered the quality of education that we offer from basic education to graduate studies. St. Dominic continuously hones all passionate achievers to become the professionals they dream to become. Because your vision is our mission.
story of St. Dominic College of Asia is a shining example of what a dedicated family is capable of achieving through perseverance, hard work, and cooperation. In 2003, 12 years after the realization of the Dream Hospital, St. Dominic Medical Center in Cavite, St. Dominic College of Arts and Sciences was founded, initially offering programs in caregiving and Bachelor of Science in Nursing in collaboration with SAMC. St. Dominic has evolved into a full-fledged collegiate institution with four schools: School of Health Science Professions, School of Arts Sciences and Education, School of International Hospitality and Tourism Management, and School of Business and Computer Studies. In 2007, the college embarked on an ambitious long-term goal which aims to achieve a university status within the next 20 years. Preparations towards accreditation of the academic programs was pursued in earnest. Rebranding strategies were also explored to make the college more relevant, responsive, and congruent with the current trends and practices of a highly globalized educational system. In 2009, St. Dominic College of Arts and Sciences was officially renamed as St. Dominic College of Asia. The change of name was made to allow the college to grow and provide more room for expansion in its programs and services in the years to come. This change redounds to the benefit of the students as it will eventually give them positional advantage in the crowded workplace in the competitive world, for its name reflects the global standards the college stands for. Highlights of this academic transformation includes the launch of the Basic Education Unit, and Level 1 accreditation of Business Administration, Information Technology, Education, Psychology, Hospitality Management, and Nursing programs for the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities Commission and Accreditation in 2014. SDCA continues to strive in achieving excellent service and program offerings. The International Organization for Standardization was awarded to SDCA as a highlight of the 11th founding anniversary. In response with the 2015 ASEAN integration and backed up by our impressive track record in higher education, SDCA reaffirmed our leadership by keeping up with the changes in the Philippine education system. The launch of our progressive and industry-responsive senior high school in 2016. Same year, SDCA Graduate School offered Master in Business Administration and Master of Arts in Psychology, proved to the community indeed walked the talk. Through the leadership of Dr. Nilda W. Balsicas, SDCA is working towards the institutional sustainability accreditation and achieved the PACOCOA Level 3 accreditation in the occasion of SDCA's 15th year in 2018. Another milestone marks the crystal year of the institution as SDCA opened the 11-story Greg Dom Building 3. With the dynamism of SDCA's industry-seasoned faculty and administrators, the institution was able to achieve various recognition in academics. In the areas of linkages, SDCA continues to have strong relationships with industry partners and academic networks. SDCA's vision to become autonomous status is the mission in the years to come, alongside with the efforts to be recognized as center of development. St. Dominic College of Asia continues to accomplish for the past 15 years is a testimony of its core values of service, dynamism, competence, and accountability. Because in St. Dominic College of Asia, we revolutionized education.
Take it all back, hate the things that you said, 'cause I wish you didn't mean it. Under attack, running far, far away, and I'd rather keep my distance from you. You don't gotta lie to me to get through. Pushing me off into the deep, and let's pretend that nothing ever happened on that night.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow.
We will be joining the NCRAA. That means to show that St. Dominic is really making waves now, and we are starting to knock at the doors of this NCAA and UAAP in the very near future.
We'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Good morning, Dominicans. Hello. You're now watching another exciting episode of Dominiconnect via YouTube Live. So this is very different now that we are using YouTube as our mode of live session for today. So, and I will be your host moderator, by the way, for this morning's exciting topics about qualitative research and how to get ideas and techniques. Okay, so I am Ijan Perez Aguilar, the OIC Program Chair for Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management, the Training and Linkage Officer and an alumnus of St. Dominic College of Asia. And today we'll be talking about topics that are filled with information that are beneficial for all the students and faculties who are currently doing their research. But before we start with the first three topics, I would like to inform you all our viewers that we will be providing digital certifications after each and every topic by following some easy steps. Okay, so first, wait for the link to be posted at the comment section down below your phone or at the right side of your screen or your monitor. Then just click the link, answer the survey, then hit submit. And the digital certification will be sent directly to your official SDCA Gmail accounts. Okay, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and start. So for our first speaker, she is a graduate and a licensed dentist. Since it's her father's dream for her to be a dentist, but her childhood dream was to be a nurse. And so she pushed herself and also became a licensed nurse. She is currently finishing her Doctor of Philosophy major in Educational Leadership and Management at the De La Salle University, Manila. A wife and a proud mother of three boys, and has been part of the St. Dominic College of Asia for the past 15 years. Her life quote is, "Life is what you make it." And her inspiration is, of course, our Lord Jesus Christ. Please welcome to discuss us about the essential elements of qualitative research, our dynamic Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Mary Nelly P. Roa. Hi, Doc. Good morning. Doc, I think your mic is on mute.
Sorry. Good morning.
Hello, Doc.
I'm so
Yes.
excited.
Good morning,
I
sir.
forgot
Good
to
morning,
turn on the
Doc.
mic.
It's
Okay,
okay,
so
Doc. I hope that you're feeling well
okay,
today. And how are you
okay,
po?
I'm good. So for the information of everyone, I'm working from home. So while speaking with you, you might be hearing at sometimes my dog barking or my son getting out of his room because he's also on he has an ongoing online class. So that's how it is in the new normal. So it is actually a very good topic for research. Okay, so which I will share to you later, and perhaps for the students to pursue such research title. Okay, allow me to start now. Next slide, Mom Steph. So my objectives, I had actually four objectives, but my the most important objective is the third. Okay? So yung pang third, wag mo munang i-press, Ma'am Steph. Yan. Pang fourth pala. The topic aims to provide students the basic concepts and principles of qualitative research as applied in education, administration, and service. This topic aims to develop as well students to exhibit lifelong learning through further research studies. I hope that students can come up with international and national trends and issues that influences their specific programs. The third objective is this topic aims to embolden students to utilize qualitative research as a method of choice and on their research endeavor. Ito yung pang fourth objective ko talaga. Itong objective na to ay napaka-importante dahil ito talaga yung nangyayari sa ating group mates in a thesis group. So my objective is not for you to end up not for you to end up doing research this way. Okay? So check nyo na lang yung picture. Okay, let's start now. A little background on research first. What is research? Research is a systematic inquiry using disciplined methods to solve problems. And right now we have different set of audience. We have students coming from different programs. So if you're going to write your research, it must be something of use for your program or for your profession. Paki-press lang po yung enter. Okay, so it is a systematic inquiry to develop knowledge about issues of importance to the profession or to your program of choice. So if you're going to write if you're an HM student, you have to write something that is of benefit to hospitality management. If you're a nursing student, something that will contribute to the knowledge of nursing. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to talk about qualitative research, but before we go into the basic tenets of qualitative research, you should know first what is a paradigm. A paradigm is a worldview, a general perspective on the complexities of the real world, with certain assumptions about reality. Okay, key paradigms for research is the positivist paradigm and the naturalistic paradigm. Next slide, please. What is the nature of reality? A positivist assumption. Reality exists, there is a real world driven by natural causes. And there is also the naturalistic assumption, wherein reality is multiple and subjective, constructed by individuals. So, how is knowledge obtained? So, for a positivist, it is a fixed design, discrete specific concepts, deductive in processes, control over context, verification of hunches, quantitative information, and seeks generalization. For a constructivist, it is flexible design, it is holistic, it is an inductive process, it is context bound, emerging interpretations, qualitative information, and it seeks patterns. So now, are you in a positivist paradigm perspective, wherein the reality is fixed and it is associated with quantitative research? Or are you in a constructivist paradigm, wherein reality is not fixed and is associated with qualitative research and subjective in nature, and it deals with narrative materials? So if you are a if you have that paradigm of a constructivist, then it's time for you to write a qualitative research. Remember, kailangan alam ninyo ang difference between a quantitative and a qualitative research, a positivist paradigm and a constructivist paradigm, in order for you to know what kind of method you will be utilizing for your research. So let's just focus on qualitative research, all right? So if your paradigm is in a constructivist approach, then you are into qualitative research. Okay? So, nandito na tayo sa qualitative research. Qualitative research designs and approaches. Qualitative research involves an emergent design, a design that emerges in the field as the study unfolds. That's the beauty of qualitative research. Although qualitative design is flexible, qualitative researches plans for broad contingencies that pose decision opportunities for study design in the field. Emergent design emerges in the field as the study unfolds. It is flexible, plan for broad contingencies, pose decision opportunities for study design. And for the bricoleurs, it is creative and intuitive, array of data from many sources, and it is holistic in understanding. Please remember that if you want to do qualitative research, you have to be a reader. You have to be creative. Okay? You have to have that very good perspective of life. Okay? So here are now the different types of qualitative research traditions. We have anthropology, such as ethnography or ethnoscience. We have something that is philosophical, wherein the domain is lived experience, like phenomenology or hermeneutics. We also have the psychology, ethology, or the ecological psychology. Next slide, please. We have sociology in domain, the social domains. We have grounded theory, ethnomethodology. We also have the social linguistics, which is most especially in the communication domain, where we do discourse analysis. And we also have history, my favorite. The domain is past events and conditions. We do historical research. Okay, just to share to you, I'm doing historical research for the past 15 years and I haven't finished it. Okay, it's about Tandang Sora. Okay, siguro pag natapos ko na yung dissertation ko, magagawa ko na yon. Alright, ethnography. Let's go now to ethnography. This is just a summary, okay? Because qualitative research requires a lot of series of lectures in order for you to really absorb the essence and the beauty of qualitative research. So I'm just giving you the essentials, all right? Ethnography. This describes and interprets cultural behavior. Types of ethnography are macro ethnography, microethnography, autoethnography, ethnoprofession research, or ethnoscience cognitive. Sample of which are something like if you want to study about the aboriginals, you want to study about the a certain community, you want to study about shamanism, the study of the late Dr. Adansa. He likes to study different ethnographic research, qualitative research, and a lot of things. A certain community, you want to go to different places like if you want to study the Badjaus, you can do that. That's ethnography. But the challenge is that you have to live with them, immerse with them. That is what you call ethnography research. Next slide, please. Ethnography relies on extensive labor intensive fieldwork. That's what I'm trying to tell you because you have to live with them, stay with them, find out about their lives, how they do things, paano sila natutulog, naliligo, kumakain, paano ang buhay nila. Okay? Culture is inferred from the group's words, actions, and products. Assumption cultures guide the way people structure their experiences. Next slide, please. This is my favorite, phenomenology. Okay, so first we had ethnography and now we have phenomenology. Phenomenology focuses on the discovery of the meaning of people's lived experience. We have descriptive phenomenology, which describes the meaning of human experience. And we also have interpretive phenomenology, which interprets human experience. Next slide, please. Phenomenology asks what is the essence of the phenomenon as experienced by these people and what does it mean. There are four aspects of experience: the lived space, the lived body, the lived time, the lived human relation. Our main data source are in depth conversations with participants. Right now, we have a pool or we have a treasure of um, phenomenology experiences during the pandemic. One thing that I would like to suggest, one topic that I would like to suggest is the lived experience of mothers, working mothers during the pandemic. And then you can be smart, you can be specific with your with your participants because this is really a very interesting topic. We can also have you during the proposal of the pharmacy group, they have this the lived experiences of community pharmacists. You can expound on that. Ang daming pwede in all disciplines, all right? So really the main data source is in-depth conversations with participants. This is what makes phenomenology really very special for me. Okay? Next slide, please. Here's another very good and very challenging type of qualitative research, the grounded theory. Grounded theory aims to discover theoretical precepts about social, psychological processes and social structures grounded in data. Substantive theory, grounded in data on a specific substantive topic, or grounded formal theory, a higher, more abstract level of theory based on substantive grounded theory studies. This is actually theory generation. This is a little bit higher in perspective when you want to do grounded theory. But since the trend right now is leaning on qualitative study, this is another interesting area of qualitative research. Historical research, as I have mentioned a while ago, this is also a very good kind of qualitative research. Like me, I'm working on Tandang Sora as the Florence Nightingale of the Philippines. But it's so difficult because it requires time and effort. Okay, you can write something about someone. Okay, this is very good for BA communication, for those who are in the field of writing. Okay, systematically attempts to establish facts about a relationship among past events. Types of historical research: biographical history, social history, or intellectual history. You can do a research about our president. Okay, how you can do you can find out his philosophical perspective. How does he think, and where do you think are the philosophical underpinnings that his decisions are based from? Okay, one clue is that if you've read the book Niccolo Machiavelli, I think most of his decisions came from those writings. Okay, so you can do a lot of good topic in terms of historical research. Other types of qualitative research are case studies. It focuses on a single entity or a small number of entities with intensive scrutiny. This is what you call cross-case analysis study. Ito maganda rin. You can have one case study and analyze it with another case, and then, but of course, it should be with one unit of analysis and with one common with one common distinct issues that you want to discover. During the pandemic, you can also come up with very good case studies. It's a gold mine of topics right now. We have a gold mine of topics in terms of the pandemic, in terms of their lived experiences, in terms of the different situations in life, the different circumstances. Okay, so case studies is really a very good and timely type of qualitative research that you can work on if you want to do qualitative study. Another one is narrative analysis. This focus on story, designed to determine how individuals make sense of events in their lives. Another very interesting qualitative type of research. Okay, next slide, please. Other types of qualitative research are the qualitative outcomes analysis, an approach to confirming the applicability of clinical strategies suggested by a qualitative study and evaluating clinical outcomes. Again, the pandemic has a pool of interesting topic for this type of research. And we also have qualitative metasynthesis, interpretative translations produced by integrating findings from qualitative studies. Ito yung binanggit ko last time with the pharma group in terms of how topic about how we can analyze the situation of our country in terms of coming up how pharmaceutical companies the capabilities of our pharmaceutical companies in developing COVID-19 vaccine, yung capacity of our country. This ang daming pwedeng topics ngayon, pandemic talaga, sobrang dami. So, which is actually under the qualitative methodology. Next slide, please. So, research with ideological perspective. Ito another type of qualitative research. We have a critical theory research. It is concerned with the critique of existing social structures with envisioning new possibilities. Okay? We also have feminist research, focuses on how gender domination and discrimination shapes women's lives and their consciousness. Participatory action research, we do this in our community health nursing, or you can also have for the community development with other programs. This produces knowledge through close collaboration with groups, communities that are vulnerable to control or oppression. This is very good for our community outreach programs. Okay, so those are the different types of qualitative research. Balikan natin. We have ethnographic research, grounded theory, phenomenology, case studies, and and other historical research and other research related to qualitative. Now we go to the methods of sampling in qualitative research. Okay. So we have convenience sampling. It is you know this. This is also part of your research one. This is also like the convenience sampling for a quantitative study. We have snowball sampling. For example, you interview me, and I will say, "Oh, this person, this mother is also a working mother, experiencing difficulty during the pandemic." So pupuntahan mo yung mother na yon, and then that mother will again direct you to another mother who is also working, yung ganon. We also have theoretical sampling based on a priority. So you have a theory and then you will sample it based you will get samples that is related to that particular a priori theory. Okay, next, purposive sampling. You know what a purposive sampling from the root word itself, purpose. You have a purpose for that participants. Okay, next, no explicit formal criteria. Sample size determined by informational needs. Decisions to stop sampling guided by data saturation. It's what you call when you have saturated or you have come with a when you have already you're already getting the same answers from the questions that you authored to them. Then there's a time you have to stop because you have reached the saturation point. And the data quality can affect sample size. Okay. Sampling the three main qualitative traditions. Okay, ethnography. Okay, this is how we do it. We mingle with many members of the culture, informal conversations with 25 to 50 informants, multiple interviews with smaller number of key informants. Okay, for phenomenology, we rely on very small samples, often 10 or few. Actually, if you have saturated with three participants, it's enough. Participants must have experienced phenomenon of interest. Of course, the one that you will be interviewing are the ones who have experienced that uh, phenomenon, that something extraordinary in their life. Okay, something that they're experiencing right now. For example, multiparous mothers who are pregnant for more than with five babies and still panganak lang niya, buntis na naman siya, multiparous yon. So maraming ganyan sa Pilipinas. Experience yan, interviewin niyo sila. Magandang study din yan. For other disciplines, experiences of pwede kayo sa hospitality management, experiences of staff or people working in the hospitality industry during the pandemic times. So just be more specific with the type of extraordinary situation that they're experiencing right now. Okay, next slide, please. For the grounded theory, typically involves samples of 20 to 30 people, selection of participants who can best contribute to emerging theory. Okay, this is something that you interview people with a specific something that you know that you want to find out the unknown so that you can come we can so that an emerging theory or you can generalize it and come up with a theory out of their experiences. Okay, next slide, please. Fieldwork issues, gaining participants' trust, pacing data collection to avoid being overwhelmed by the intensity of data, avoiding emotional involvement with participants, maintaining reflexivity. Data collection in qualitative research, this is how you do it, okay? So, please remember that when you collect data from a qualitative research, you have to do several things like bracketing, intuiting. Bracketing is uh, dealing with your own feelings, taking out, kasi minsan pag nagka-quali tayo, masyado tayong immersed with the feelings. You have to bracket yourselves first. You have to do away your assumptions, presuppositions, and tatanggalin mo sa isip mo yung what do you think, yung iniisip mong dapat isagot nung participants. Dapat ano ka nasa neutral zone. Okay, yun yung mahirap doon. And then you should be able to uh, catch the attention of the participant of your study. You should gain their trust. And yun nga, avoid being overwhelmed by the intensity of the data. Kasi sometimes, what's on your mind is already the thing that you're doing. Kasi you're writing. Kasi you are supposed to do a concept teams. You have to extract from the verbatim datas the meaning of the experience, the meaning of the words. Minsan sa sobrang overwhelmed ka na, minsan nagkakaroon ka ng biases. Ang naisusulat mo yung gusto mong mangyari sa study. Yun yung what makes qualitative research difficult, okay? When you ask question, when you collect data, you have to really be on the neutral zone. You have to maintain reflexivity. Okay? Next slide, please. Preparing for qualitative interviews. ensure that the interviewers and respondents have a common vocabulary. Of course, you have to have that purposive sampling, di ba? Kilala mo dapat yung iyong participants. Develop a word questions to be asked. Become familiar with questions. You have to have a guide tour questions, a guide questions. Okay, but those guide questions are just guide questions because all the questions that you will utter will always be dependent on on the answers of the participants. Then you redirect your questions back to your guide questions. Okay, conduct a practice interview. Decide how to present oneself to participants, decide on settings for data collection, obtain needed supplies. You will need a recorder. Well, meron na daw ngayon kasi nung nag-data gathering ako for my paper, I use the recorder and I write down verbatim the transcripts. Pero ngayon meron na daw when you record automatic nagta-translate na si app. I didn't know that. How I wish I knew that before I did my data gathering. Okay, next slide please. Okay, take steps to break the ice, to put participants at ease. Okay, it may sound easy, but the actual or the concrete situation in conducting interviews is actually very difficult. Okay, share pertinent information about the study with participants. Develop rapport to gain participants' trust. Listen intently to guide subsequent questionings. That's a difficult part because going to ask open-ended questions and your follow-through question must always be redirected to your original questions on the statement of the purpose of your study. Kasi minsan your participants, the one you're interviewing, will be talking a lot about her experiences, but you have to somehow redirect or ask questions again that you wherein you will reframe or you will go back to the purpose of your study, finding out the experience. Kasi it becomes broader and broader while the participants answers your question. Minsan natutuwa siyang sumagot and you have to stop her and kasi nawawala na dun sa direction ng iyong study and you go back to the original question. Yon, that's very difficult. May sound easy, but it's difficult. Next slide, please. Probe for information as needed. Okay? When you ask question, make sure that lalabas the answers of the participants, lalabas yung hinahanap mong essence of the experience. Okay? Babalikan ko, ang hirap din yan kasi sometimes kung hindi naman complete yung bracketing mo, minsan nagiging bias ka na naman sa sarili mo wherein you will probe by asking answers were in yun yung na-expect mong answer. Kaya yung mahirap talaga ang quali, okay? Be ready to handle emotionality. Okay, na I was a victim of that because in my master's thesis, my studies about lived experiences of mothers with children with substance-induced psychosis. So, minsan umiiyak si mother, pati ako umiiyak na rin. Alright? So, manage emotions, okay? Manage crisis, okay? And achieve a positive closure. Yan, ang hirap, no? Ganon ang beauty ng qualitative interviews, qualitative study. That's the beauty of it. Okay? Next slide. Qualitative data analysis naman tayo. Task in qualitative data management and organization. Actually, data analysis right now for a qualitative study is easier. We have Max QDA, we have NVivo, we have different kinds of electronic assistance, okay? Pero ako, pabalikan ko, I still love the traditional coding process, okay? I do color coding, I use index cards to code my transcripts, okay? Kasi I am more immersed with the data, okay? But after that, I will validate it by using MaxQDA or other electronic application. Okay, so going back in task in qualitative data management and organization, we have the coding qualitative data, organizing your qualitative data, making conceptual files, and ito na nga, computerized methods of organization. Next slide, please. Okay, so some general analytic overview. Generalize lang itong ina-explain ko sa inyo kasi nga, as I mentioned to you a while ago, hindi madali ang qualitative study. Okay, madaling basahin, madaling intindihin, but the actualization is not easy. Okay, first thing you have to do is to identify themes. Search for patterns among themes, variations in data, develop charting devices or timelines, validate themes and patterns, calculate quasi-statistics, integrate thematic pieces. Okay, next slide please. Okay, balik nga tayo dun, sir. Madam. Okay, so ang pinaka-essence nito is that the first thing you do for analyzing your qualitative study is, of course, from the recorder, you transcribe the interview, you do interview transcript, transcribe them verbatim, and then you code the participants code participants 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then after coding that you will code each line statement, and then after that you will extract, parang nag-groupings ka ng mga pare-parehong or the same concepts or constructs, I mean, constructs muna. That's a level 1 coding. And then for your level 2 coding, the constructs becomes concepts. And then your level 3 coding, the concepts becomes themes. Ganun yon. Don't forget, yung mga coding mo, dapat may code din yon because at the end of the, during your data analysis, you will have to identify those words whom they came from. Sinong participants galing yon? Kasi you will be explaining that eventually in your data analysis. In the data analysis. Okay? Next slide, please. Trustworthiness and integrity in qualitative research. Okay? There are 10 qualitative validity schemes. Okay? 4 primary validity schemes are credibility, authenticity, criticality, and integrity. The 6 secondary are explicitness, vividness, creativity, thoroughness, congruence, and sensitivity. Okay? Criticality, researchers' critical appraisal of every research decision. Okay? The researcher is very important here. Okay? You have to um, really you have to decide with a very logical decision on your research, on your qualitative research. Okay, you don't just write a qualitative research because you want it a qualito, kakaiba to. No, you really have to write it with due respect, logical and critical thinking skills, very important here. Integrity, demonstrated by ongoing self-scrutiny to enhance the likelihood that interpretations are valid and grounded in the data. Just what I told you a while ago. After your data after transcribing all the data, actually you have to go back to your participants and validate sa kanila kung ito ba talaga yung I have transcribed it. Is this really what you're trying to tell me during the interview? That's why you really have to interpret the data in a grounded way, talagang from the meaning of the words, of the experiences that they have uttered to you, that they have shared to you. Explicitness is the ability to follow the researcher's decision through careful documentation. Okay? That's why from the transcripts, from the verbatim transcriptions, from the construct to concepts and themes, it's really very important. In fact, from the very beginning, how are you going to collect your data? How are you going to analyze it? From the very essence of your methodological explanation, you have to be explicit in it. Kasi qualitative study is not an easy type of methodology. Because ito nga yung sinasabi natin, constructivity to eh. Okay? You are a constructive person. You look for the experiences through emergent, may emerging ano to eh meaning of the experiences. You look for the meaning of the words from the experiences. Vividness involves rich and vivid descriptions. Don't just write words that are what you call this yung flowery words. Don't use that. You just para lang maging sabihin mong the descriptions are rich. No. When you describe the experience, you describe it in a way that is rich, but the words that you're using are not so flowery or not so may tawag sa word na yun eh. But you describe the words based on the what is really happening in the experience. Like if you have a study in allied health, like you have caregiver role strain, you have the meaning of caring, there is commitment. Do not use words that are like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious just to make your study um uh look very so as to make your study look appear to be sabihin too scholarly. No, what you need is the vividness of the description. You have to write the exact meaning of the experience, okay? Like clarity of focus, there is what you call mga words yan, yung mga pwede nyong i-develop na themes eh. There is what you call the uh powerlessness. Okay, there is words that can come up with your paper, or the uh themes that can really be very interesting is compassion. The meaning of life is um uh, ano ba yung mga gagandang words na pwede nating gamitin, okay? A lot of words that you can use, no? You can use uh you can use words like purposeful. You can use words like coming from different theories. You can borrow it from them because you have a priori theory from that. You have this envisioning the purpose, living the vision. Yun yung mga vividness of descriptions. Yun yung mahirap kasing part, no? Describing the experiences itself. Okay? Yan ang difficulty ng qualitative research. You have to be rich in words. You have to have you should be the Merriam dictionary, because using or identifying the right word to describe the true essence of the experience is the most important validity scheme. Okay, next slide please. Creativity, you have to be creative when you identify from the concept towards the themes. You have to be creative in reflecting in reflecting the experiences while you're analyzing your data. Okay, thoroughness, comprehensive data, and the full development of ideas. Kaya nga you should not leave the verbatim transcript. Don't leave untouched. Don't leave untouched words, because every words in the transcripts matters a lot. Okay. Congruence is the interconnectedness between parts of the inquiry and the whole, and between study findings and external context. That's why you start with the unit of analysis. From the unit of analysis, you do cross case analysis. And then cross case analysis, you have to have that individual analysis. Kailangan interconnected lahat. Okay, that's from the case study point of view. But in Pheno, ganun din 'yon. From the constructs to the concept to the themes, from the verbatim transcription, there should be congruence. Okay? Sensitivity, degree to which an inquiry reflects respects and compassion for those being studied. Okay, next slide please. Development of equality-minded outlook commitments. Okay, don't forget that your paper, your qualitative research must have transparency, thoroughness, verification, reflexivity, participant-driven inquiry, insightful interpretation. Okay, this is my last slide. Okay, qualitative researchers direct their attention to human realities rather than concrete realities of objects. Babalikan ko yung sinasabi ko kanina, that qualitative study may sound, when you read the methodology itself, it may, when you read it, it appears to be very easy. But actually, writing or doing a qualitative research is difficult because you have to have that special sense of yung kasi subject ano to eh, soft science. When you say soft science, you are more on that subjective point of view. And that subjective point of view must be interpreted in a way that you're not being subjective. Ibig sabihin, you will interpret it in a very creative and um, mindful way. Hindi yung you don't interpret it based on your feelings. You interpret it objectively. Okay? Parang ganun ang nangyayari. So, and then from the interpretation emerges, you will describe the experiences by coming up with a concept that eventually becomes the theme of the experience. Ganun kahirap. That's why it's not easy to write a qualitative research. Um you have to do a lot of things. First of all, the bracketing part is the most difficult part. Okay? And then you have to interpret it vividly. You have to interpret it with cohesiveness. You don't just interpret it na, okay, ito yung sinabi niya, tapos na. No, you have to go beyond the meaning of the words. Baka kasi yung word na yan ay superficial lang. There's still more to find out. You have to call out pa rin the essence of the experience from the participant. Okay? So, really, the qualitative research that's what make qualitative research very special because it is the very essence of the very meaning of the experience. Qualitative research is understanding the phenomena. That's why it's interesting and exciting. Okay? With that, that's how I will end my lecture. And again, during this pandemic times, we have several very interesting qualitative research topics. I've mentioned a while ago the about mothers, working mothers, experiences during the pandemic. Just be specific with the type of mothers, and a lot of things that can come into your mind right now in terms of the in education, your experiences of students during the pandemic, during the online learning, ang daming pwede, and a whole lot of things, a whole lot of topics. There, it's sabi nga ni Dr. Hermano, it's a gold mine of researchable topics right now during the pandemic. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry for that. I'm already on mute. So thank you so much, Dr. Mary Nelly D. Roa, for presenting to us what a qualitative research is all about, and as well as its elements and composition. So I will take note all of those in preparation for my own research, and now we'll proceed with the question and answers for all our viewers. So for viewers, if you have any questions, clarifications, and suggestions, or if you want to share your experiences in doing qualitative research, please comment it at the comment section down below your phone or at the right side part of your monitor. By the way, Dr. Nilda W. Balsikas congratulated you earlier at the comment section. Anyone from our viewers? So I guess we don't have any more questions from our viewers. So if we can still comment here. Later on, we will address it. Okay. So for our next speaker, he has a degree in physical therapy and graduated as class valedictorian with marks in proficiency in clinical training and most outstanding thesis at Aguinaldo College, Manila. He also has a master's degree in education, major in guidance and counseling, also an alumnus of De La Salle University, Manila, with master's degree of health social science and currently finishing up his postgraduate with doctoral philosophy in social development at the Philippine Women's University. Former Dean of the School of Physical Therapy and Radiologic Technology at Emilio Aguinaldo College, Cavite, and now the program chair for the Department of Physical Therapy of St. Dominic College of Asia. He will be sharing his knowledge about how to conduct qualitative research for health science. Our featured doctor, Professor Ronald Laguna Sardan. Hi, sir. Good morning.
Hello. Hello, good morning everyone.
Sir.
Thank you very much first to the Office of the Vice President for Research, Extension and Linkages for inviting me to speak about conducting a qualitative research for the health science professions. So doing a qualitative research in the health science professions has been very popular, yeah, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, as because of the holistic philosophy of the health science professions, in which the professions in the healthcare industry are caring, and we try to understand our clients or patients. That's the very essence of doing a qualitative research in the health sciences. So I hope that with my short talk or short lecture about qualitative research for the health sciences, you'll be able to grasp or important concepts about doing a qualitative research for health sciences in a profession or in an industry dominated by data and numbers. Okay, next slide please. So at the end of the lecture, the objectives are, at the end of this active lecture, the learner should be able to first be able to differentiate what's the difference of a quantitative research to a qualitative research in the healthcare perspective. Next, we'll be able to identify qualitative research methods. I'll just add up to what our Vice President for Academic Affairs has already discussed. The important qualitative research methods, especially in healthcare, there are very important qualitative research methods in healthcare. Next, we're able to identify or determine rather and apply data collection methods in qualitative research in healthcare. This is what I'll be focusing about, the important data collection methods that you need to understand for you to be able to deliver or to be able to get your data for your qualitative researches. And lastly, this is again very important, we'll be able to identify measures of rigor or trustworthiness and validity in qualitative studies in healthcare, because this has been widely disputed, especially by those who are leaning towards the quantitative studies. Those leaning towards the quantitative studies, they are primarily questioning the trustworthiness and validity of qualitative studies. So we'll be talking about measures of rigor in qualitative studies. Next slide, please. So let's start with, how does qualitative research differ from a quantitative research in healthcare? So as we all know, again, I have emphasized earlier that the health science profession, especially in those in the laboratory fields such as medical technology, pharmacy, they are more on the data values and numbers. So they are talking about uh, statistical differences, statistical relationships. But in the other side of the health science profession, such as nursing, also physical therapy and caregiving, qualitative research has also been a trend. Because primarily, qualitative research is again consistent with the holistic philosophy of healthcare professions, in which we care for or we check or we see the whole person as it is. Okay, we do not just focus on one aspect of the person, but we also try to analyze that everything that affects the health of a person is multifactorial in nature, or it is caused by different situations or different scenarios in which qualitative research comes into play. So a qualitative research in health sciences or healthcare professions is a systematic and a subjective approach. As what our VPA mentioned earlier, it is a subjective approach that enables us to describe life experiences and give meanings into words, okay, or give words meaning. So we try to give specific words, or we try to give specific statements a meaning, in which uh, those meanings are used to be able to translate into powerful constructs and concepts, okay, and themes that we use to interpret what has happened to a specific patient or client, or what has happened into a specific scenario in the health sciences professions. Health qualitative research is very useful in understanding human experiences such as pain, caring, powerlessness, and comfort. No, these are very important themes that has emerged throughout the performance of qualitative researches in healthcare. So primarily, if you will search in the research databases, you will see that qualitative researches primarily are towards understanding, especially those human emotions of pain, sadness, depression, anxiety, okay, and others. So they are very powerful and important into understanding things. Unlike quantitative research that we focus on specific data sets and data figures, a qualitative research is tasked to focus on understanding the whole, other than just understanding either there is a significant difference or there's a significant relationship between one variable and another variable. In qualitative research, we try to understand the totality of the data that we collected, and not just if it has statistical significance. Next slide, please. So earlier, our Vice President for Academic Affairs has mentioned to you different frameworks for qualitative research. So let me just add some key points regarding the frameworks for qualitative studies. Let us remember that the goal of a qualitative research is not hypothesis testing. It does not involve any statistical tests. It does not involve any statistical analysis for you to prove either your hypothesis is true or not true, or valid or invalid, or significant or not significant. That's not the goal of a qualitative research. But rather, the goal of a qualitative research is for you to really see the holistic view of a certain topic, or to see the totality of a certain situation or a certain point, and check what are the factors, or what are the reasons behind why did this theme or why did this concept really emerge. Okay, we're not really talking about here about numbers, but we are really talking about words that are really powerful, that affect a certain theme or a certain construct. So each type of qualitative research is guided by a particular philosophical stance, as what our BP earlier mentioned, that there are naturalistic, there are positivist stance, and there are inquisitive stance also. So when you do a qualitative research, especially in healthcare, you must be guided by a specific philosophical stance. Next slide, please. So let us look into how does data in qualitative research look different than a data in quantitative research. So in the common perspective or common sense, the difference number one is the data in a quantitative research comes in the form of figures and numbers, and in qualitative research, it comes into statements, words, and verbatim words or verbatim statements. So data collection or data in qualitative research is subjective, but we must make sure that the data that we gather is collected in a systematic way. Okay, next is that it provides us, or it enables us to describe life experiences. Okay, because really life experiences, or whatever we experience in our lives, cannot be defined, or cannot be computed, or cannot be rationalized by figures and numbers. Some life experiences could be defined by words. And by getting those life experiences, or by getting those words, we give meaning, or we give understanding and meaning to those words described by our informants or participants. So data in qualitative research are typically words, as earlier mentioned, words versus numbers than in quantitative research. And again, we always try to look at the holistic perspective of the topic or the subject. And we do not just deal about answering our statement of the problems, but we try to look at it as a total view. And lastly, the data that we get from the qualitative research, we try to incorporate it through the perceptions and beliefs of both the researcher and participants. But let me emphasize, as also earlier discussed by our Vice President for Academics, that we must try to do bracketing. So what is bracketing? We try to shield we try to shield ourselves as the researcher from influencing whatever the result of the study may be, so as to avoid having bias that this will be the result of the study, or I will lean the words that I will get towards this result. So we try to do bracketing. However, we also try to inject our perceptions and beliefs on the specific study or the specific topic that we are trying to look into and analyze. Okay, next slide, please. So here are very important words that we use to describe the purpose of qualitative research in healthcare. Qualitative researches in healthcare or health science professions aims to describe a life experience, or describe an emotion, or we describe an situation. After we describe, we can also use qualitative research to understand a specific feeling or understand a specific situation. Now, for example, the most popular examples for understanding is understanding the experiences of PLHIVs as to stigma. So that's an example of a qualitative study in which we try to understand the plight of persons living with HIV as to the stigma they are experiencing in the community, or either in the workplace, or either in their own family, or in the country as whole. Okay, so that's another example of a qualitative study that uses understanding. Next, we also try to explain. No, yes, qualitative research could also enable you to explain specific things that are not explainable by numbers. And next, we can also identify. Okay, we can also develop. Qualitative research are also used to develop specific concepts in teams, such as later in grounded theory. We will be able to develop a theory out of statements and words. And lastly, we'll be able to generate. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, it is very important, or it's very imperative that as we do qualitative research methods in healthcare, everything should be based on, number one, it should be based on multiple realities. So again, because qualitative research is holistic in view, we must see to it that we look into it into multiple realities. We try to check every aspect, or we try to see or check every situation in which the informant or the subject is into, and not just one fixated reality, but we try to look at it into multiple perspectives or multiple realities. Also, data collection should not be structured and should not be vexing into the informant or to the participant. It should be natural. You are just like talking to the informant, or you just talking. For example, in my own experience, I have tried data collection in a military camp. So we are just talking, or I'm just talking with the military man or the military personnel inside the camp, under the tree. So the military personnel is very calm because he is inside its own natural setting, whereas it is the military base. So the data that I have collected from that military personnel is very natural because he is not afraid to talk about something because he is inside his natural setting. So it must be natural. It must not be structured. But sometimes there are qualitative researchers that would want to perform data collection uh, in a quiet area or in a quiet area. That is the theoretical setting, in a quiet area where, yeah, you and the informant is only the person inside the room, and you're talking one on one. But in the current trends in qualitative researches, it has been found out that a natural setting is a more viable way into data collection, especially in qualitative researches. Okay, in qualitative researches, both the researchers and participants interact. In quantitative research, I hand you a survey, okay, a survey form. I'll collect your survey form, and that's the end of our interaction. But in qualitative researches, we interact with one another. I talk, you talk. Okay, I mentioned something and you will relate to me something. That's the beauty of qualitative data collection. You'll be able to interact, and while you are interacting, you are able to also perform other methods of qualitative data collection such as observation. You observe the gesture of the person that you are interviewing. You can check for signs of anxiety such as this. Okay, or you can see if the informant is really nervous because his hands are shaking. You can also check for that. That's the beauty of qualitative research. You'll be able to check, or you'll be able to have a one-on-one interaction with your respondents. Unlike with quantitative, in which I just got the data and I'll plug it in the analysis software, and then that's it. That's the end of the research. I already got my result. So the results of qualitative researches, especially in healthcare, are rich descriptions. Okay, as again earlier mentioned by our VPAA, the results are vivid. Okay, are vivid descriptions or vivid expressions, vivid statements. Sometimes there are explicit statements. I have experienced that there are explicit statements that will be recorded, but you need to show that, and you need to state that in your manuscript, even though it's explicit, because that is allowed. Okay, that is primarily allowed in qualitative research, as long as that explicit statement is giving meaning into something or giving meaning into your specific subject or specific topic. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are different approaches into qualitative research. The following are already discussed by our DPA, but these are the 5 important qualitative research approaches that are popularly used or widely used in healthcare. We have phenomenological or phenomenology, we have grounded theory, we have ethnography, you have also exploratory, descriptive, qualitative, and you have historical. So let us talk about them one by one. So the first is phenomenology or phenomenological approach. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, qualitative research should be based on philosophical orientations and outcomes. So I have already talked about that earlier. So let's go into the first approach into qualitative research, which is phenomenology. Next slide, please. So phenomenology is described as it provides a rich description of the lived experience of a certain informant, or the lived experience of a certain uh, subject or topic. So next slide, please. So I'll show to you an actual example of a phenomenological study. So this is my own research. This is a phenomenological study of Filipino men in uniform who are experiencing sexual dysfunctions. So I have looked into their utilization of treatment services. So for example, are they going to the doctor to seek consult for their sexual problems or sexual dysfunction problems? I have also looked into their live experience. What do they experience? They have experienced embarrassment with their common law partners, embarrassment with their wife, or embarrassment as to their colleagues because when they disclose that they have sexual dysfunction problems, mostly their colleagues, because though these are Filipino men in uniform or men in uniform where the machismo is on the highest level, they have experienced that they are embarrassed. Some even experienced that they had been isolated, or they have been abandoned by their friends because of their current problems. So with this example, we have looked into the lived experience of Filipino men in uniform. So as our BPA also mentioned earlier, there are a gold mine of studies now, especially in the pandemic, that we could look. Another example is you might want to look in the live experiences of medical technologies who are in the front lines. That could be another example. That is a very interesting study. Because the study of the pharmacy group regarding the community pharmacies, the lived experiences of community pharmacies, that is also a good example of a phenomenological research. Okay? So, as in the Institute of Physical Therapy, we will ma'am, please go to the previous slide. In the Institute of Physical Therapy, we would also like to look in the experiences of uh, Filipino physical therapists doing home care or home-based treatment settings. So we will also look into that as well. So this is a very good opportunity for us in the healthcare industry to do qualitative researches because we are seeking to understand, okay, what is happening with our colleagues, what is happening to our patients, and what is happening to our profession as well. So next slide, please. So another approach for the qualitative researches for healthcare is grounded theory. So grounded theory is based on the symbolic interaction theory, in which it is this symbolic interaction theory is a micro level theory in which it checks the interaction of individuals in a specific cluster or specific society. So meaning is attached to things or actions which really form our reality. So the result of the grounded theory is really theory development. But grounded theory takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort to be able to perform a grounded theory study. So next slide, please. So this is an example of a grounded theory study in healthcare. The title is Competence in Providing Mental Health Care, a Grounded Theory, Analysis of Nurses' Experiences. So the study checks about the nurses' experiences into providing quality or into providing competent and quality mental health care into clients or patients suffering from mental health problems. So it took them, I have read the study, it took them a lot of time. The study was conducted around 5 to 10 years. So it took them a lot of time for them to really analyze the experiences of nurses who are providing mental health services for mental health problems. Next slide, please. So next, we have ethnography. Now, as earlier mentioned by our VPAA, ethnography is also a very interesting qualitative approach in healthcare because primarily this is based in anthropology. So anthropology is defined, we can define anthropology as the study of cultures. It doesn't mean that we do an ethnographic study. It does not mean that we must go into rural communities or we must go into ethnic communities. That's not the case. Anything that has a specific culture, even a school, even a specific department or a culture. We have a rather a specific department or a specific school has their own culture, and that could be performed with an ethnographic study. A hospital has its own culture. Okay, the personnel in that specific hospital has its own culture. That's where ethnographic studies could come into play. Okay, no, I would like to debunk the notion that we must go into the ethnic. Although it's the real essence of an ethnographic study that we go into. We immerse ourselves from the ethnic communities, but we could also do ethnographic studies in the comforts of our own office, in the comforts of our own institutions, because we try to culturally blend the essence of ethnography or ethnographic studies is we culturally blend with the specific group or the specific location that we are studying. Okay, next slide please. So here's an example of an ethnographic study in healthcare. The title is The Actualities of Knowledge Work, an institutional ethnography of multidisciplinary primary healthcare teams. So if we look into the title, they did not go into any ethnic community or they did not go into any rural community, but rather they just studied their own culture inside their own institution. They look into the cultures of different multidisciplinary primary healthcare teams. For example, I will study the culture of the laboratory department. I will study the culture of the pharmacy department. I will study the culture of the rehab department. And then I will combine everything, and then that's already ethnography. I would analyze their different cultures and primarily answer a specific subject that needs to be answered in ethnography. Okay, so that's an example of an ethnographic study in healthcare. Next slide, please. Next, we have exploratory descriptive. No, again, as mentioned by our BPA, it's like telling a story. I always tell students that my favorite example of an exploratory descriptive is Malaala Mo Kaya. That's like an example of an exploratory descriptive study in which there's really no approach needed. It's just naturalistic inquiry. You just let the informant, the patient, or the client tell his or her story. Okay, and while telling his or her story, you'll be able to get important data or important answers that you need to answer a question in a qualitative form or a qualitative method. A popular example of this is the study about if you were born in the 90s. No, I don't think that you were born here. But for here, who were born in the 90s, the popular example of this is a narrative study about the life of Dulcura Cortez and the life of Sarah Jane Salazar, who are the first two clients or the first two patients or informants who publicly stated that they are HIV positive or they are suffering from or they are PLHIV or persons living with HIV. Okay, so they were performed with a narrative study. Okay, and that narrative study was the basis of the film Dahil Mahal Kita, the Dulcura Cortez story, and the story of Sarah Jane Salazar, who were showcased into movies. Okay? Those were very educational movies, and those were based on descriptive narrative qualitative studies. Okay? So next. Next slide, please. And lastly, we have your historical. So historical approach, we try to examine and describe events or other factors that influence what you're interested in. We try to check parts and parcels of history if it really affected, no, if it really affected what subject we are focusing now. For example, we try to check for we try to do an historical study of the health-seeking behavior of Filipino, and we try to link it on why the COVID-19 cases in the countries is still really going up. Okay, that's historical. We try to check what has been the practice of the Philippines historically into handling pandemics or epidemics. That could also be another example of an historical study or historical qualitative study. Okay? So next slide, please. So what is the total qualitative research process? So this is the total flow chart, or this is the flow chart of a qualitative research process. First, we select a topic or problem that we like to, okay, that we like to see. No, everything starts with with a problem that we would like to address or answer. Next, you justify the significance of the study. Both in quantitative and qualitative studies, we must try to look at we must try to look to it that our study is novel or our study is really relevant. We will not like, okay, the researchers to spend too much time into dwelling studies that has already been dwelt or has already been studied before or has already been proven before. Okay, so we must try to justify why is there a need for us to do the study. Next is we try to select a specific qualitative research design or qualitative research approach. We try to identify and gain access to our subjects or informants. We try to select study informants and subjects and data, and then we do data collection. And lastly, we do the interpretation of our data results or our data collection. Next slide, please. So which methods are unique into qualitative research than quantitative research? No, we have selection of subjects. We will also tackle about research participant relationship. We will also talk about data collection methods, data management, data analysis, and interpretation of qualitative data. So next slide, please. So what are subjects in qualitative data, or how are subjects selected in qualitative studies, especially in healthcare? Unlike with quantitative studies that we call our subjects as subjects, in qualitative studies we call them as informants. So that the proper term in qualitative studies, rather than client or patient or subject, is we call them as the informant. If we will translate it into a manuscript, we will state that the informant mentioned that, or the informant stated that. We do not call them the subject stated, or the variable stated that, or the sample stated that. We do not mention that, but rather in qualitative studies, we call them as the informant. So they may either be volunteering or they may volunteer to be involved with study. That's where convenience sampling, or you have your voluntary sampling, comes into play. Or rather, you can also perform purposive sampling, in which the researcher purposely selects samples because of their particular knowledge into that specific subjects. Now, for example, my earlier study about Filipino men in uniform, primarily, I have purposely selected Filipino men in uniform who are experiencing sexual problems or sexual dysfunction problems. You might also want to purposely select some informants, rather, because of their experience and their views which are related into the study. Next slide, please. So what is purposive sampling? So purposive sampling is whereas the researcher purposely selects, okay, their informants or samples, which is typically in relation into the phenomenon that you are currently studying. Okay, for example, if you're studying about persons with substance-related abuse, you might want to look into persons with, or purposely select persons who are taking up illicit substances. Okay? So you may also seek out individuals different in some way from other participants to get diverse perspective. You might also want to reverse. You might also want to get an individual who does not experience that specific scenario, so that you will be able to get, okay, you will be able to get their opposite perspective of the phenomenon that you are studying. So primarily in purposive sampling, we do snowballing technique. So it's like networking. I know someone who experiencing this. I will refer him or her to you, and then that person also knows someone who experiences this, and I will refer him or her to you. So that's snowballing sampling. It's like a snowball that slowly becomes big because of recruitment. Okay, so that's snowballing technique. Next slide, please. So how do sample sizes differ from quantitative studies? So we have certain decisions that we need to do regarding sample size. So it is based on the needs related to study purpose. It's unlike quantitative studies that we need to compute for the sample size, power calculations. We do Slovin's formula or we do sample size calculation. But in qualitative study, it really differs on your needs. Okay? Or it really is determined by the needs of your study. So usually the number of informants or subjects in a qualitative study are usually smaller. No, it's not unusual that you see only 10 informants as long as the data is already saturated. It's not unusual to see that there's only 5 individuals as long as they are very relevant. And they give you the saturation you need for the data is really not unusual. Now, according to the Bible, now I call it the Bible of qualitative researchers, which is Creswell. According to Creswell, 6 to 10 subjects in a qualitative study is really not unusual. But in a quantitative study, that is not allowed. It will significantly alter or affect the results of your study because of the weak sample power calculation. But in qualitative study, as long as you gather or you get the data that you need and the data is already saturated, okay, these numbers really do not matter. So next slide, please. So what are the characteristics of a research participant relationship? I have earlier mentioned that qualitative researches, there is an interaction between the researcher and the informant. So as a researcher, I must treat my informant as a colleague rather than just a mere subject or rather just a mere variable. So I must treat him or her as my colleague so that I could elicit or I could get the best answer or the best response that I could get from the informant or the specific participant. So the researcher must make sure that he must have the support and confidence of the participant to complete the study. Here in this concept comes the one very important aspect of healthcare, which is building rationale or building rapport and rationale, building rapport into our clients. That's very, very important in across all healthcare professions, that we build the rapport and trust of our healthcare. Because if our clients, patients, informants will not have trust with us, they will not be seeking our care or they will not be telling their story to us. So we must try to build rapport through doing rationale. We try to talk to them that we are talking about this because this study will lead into a greater view, and your plight and situation will be understood by the rest of the society or the rest of the world. Okay, so we must try to build relationship and we must try to build rapport to our informants and clients because relationship is of utmost importance in qualitative researches. It's very, very important. Without proper rapport, without the trust of the informant, they will not tell you their whole story. So you will not elicit, or even if you probe, okay, you do repetitive probing, they will not really tell you the story because they are not trusting you. So we must try to build rapport and relationship with our informants. But a word of caution again, we must try to do bracketing. No, it's very, very important. So again, bracketing, we must shield ourselves from being too emotional. We must try to shield ourselves from being dwelling too much into the case of the um, dwelling to the case of the informant. No, we must try to bracket ourselves. So we must try to do bracketing. We must shield ourselves that we only uh, do this. We will only do this up to this extent. Okay? So next slide, please. So what are the data collection methods in qualitative research, especially in healthcare? We have four rather primary data collection methods in qualitative researches. We have key informant interviews of where we have KIs. We call that KIs or KIIs. You have participant observations or POs. You have focus group discussions or FGDs, and you have cultural blendings, which are widely used in ethnographic studies. So you have cultural blending. Okay, so let's talk about them one by one. Next slide, please. So, key informant interviews and focus group discussions primarily involves interviewing. So that's a very important concept and a very important skill that you need to harness and master in a qualitative research, the art of interviewing. So let me give you simple tips in doing interviewing in qualitative researches. We must try to see to it that our instrument or our research tool. By the way, in qualitative research, when we do interviews, the tool that we will be using is called an interview guide. Okay, we do not call it as a survey form or a survey instrument. We call it as an interview guide. We must make sure that our interview guide is in an open-ended format. It should not be answerable by a yes or no. Okay? Because if everything is answerable by a yes or no or close-ended loop format, so we will not be able to elicit the answers that we are seeking to answer. So it must be an open-ended format. And it should not be leading. Excuse me. It should not be leading. Okay? Uh, it should not lean towards you getting this answer. It should be as open as possible. And you must make sure that the formatting of the question or the structure of the question must make sure that the informant is answering on his or her own, and because you are not leading the informant or the subject towards answering this. Let me give an example. Okay, an example of a leading question is, are you sexually active? That's leading. Okay, or that's a close-ended question. Are you sexually active? It's answerable a yes or no. Okay, we try to transform that into a close-ended. Uh, we try uh, we try to transform that into a close-ended format question. Are you engaging in multiple sexual partners? Okay, are you engaging sexual activities with multiple sexual partners? Okay, the term multiple, okay, the term multiple there is already leading. Okay? Because you try to presume that the informant is sexually preoccupied or sexually active. That's leading. So we try to transform it into an open-ended format. Okay? Ma'am or sir, could you kindly tell me about your uh, or if you may allow me, could you kindly state to me your previous sexual experiences? Okay, that may sound odd, but it's an open-ended format. It's an open-ended format whereas you will elicit the answer that you are trying to get without leading. Okay, without leading the informant rather that this is the answer that I like to get, that you are engaging in multiple sexual partners. Okay, so that's an example of an open-ended format. So in the interview, you must be the captain of the interview. So the researcher defines the focus. So if you see that the informant is already getting away towards the topic, then you must do techniques. You must try to do leading techniques that uh, enable you to let the informant go back into the topic. So you try to do probing, probing is again asking another set of question, or asking other set of questions. So in qualitative research, there is really no fixed sequence of questions. So it's a free question and answer portion. Okay, as long as you are assuring that you are getting the answers that you need. So there is really no sequence of questions. Unlike with a survey that you must answer this, and then if you answered yes in bullet number one, what is your response into this? So that is a fixed sequence. So questions tend to change as a researcher gains insights from previous interviews and observations. Now, it changes over time. No, as you do the interview, okay, your type of questioning also changes as you go by the interview. And the respondents, or the informants rather, are encouraged to raise issues that are not addressed by the researcher. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so how is text collected? When we do interviews either in FGDs or in or in key informant interviews, uh, texts are collected. So these are the words that are collected. Usually, the old school method of data collection is I will put a data recorder, I will ask the consent, and then, okay, you record the whole statement, and then you transcribe it individually. So that's very taxing, no? Uh, that takes a lot of time. But personally, me, I enjoy doing that because, okay, through doing transcriptions, I'll be able to understand what is happening into my informant, or to the research informant. So also, it could be written by the participants, such as the case of a narrative. It could be written through a letter, okay, such as like in MMK, it could be solicited by mail, or it could be written, or it could also be recorded, such as I mentioned earlier, and also it could be through published textbooks, such as through biographies, or newspaper statements, and the like. Next slide, please. So next, we go into participant observation. So what does participant observation, or what do we do in an participant observation? Now, we try to understand, or this is the process of understanding what is going on here. No, we uh, I always tell my students or my co-researchers that when we do observations, we do not try to be very obvious that we do observations. No, for example, I just walk by the room, and then I try to pretend that I am chit-chatting with the informant. But really, while I am chit-chatting or doing talk with the informant, I am already observing what is happening inside that specific room, or I am already observing what the gestures. I'm already observing what is happening. So we try to look and listen carefully and note of routine activities. Okay, routine activities that is happening to the informant. We also try to note for discrete events and unexpected events that happens during the process of the participant observation. One dilemma of participant observation is that sometimes qualitative researchers do not inform the uh, informants directly that I am observing you, because we try to avoid manipulated reactions. So that's why sometimes, no, really in qualitative researches, we try to uh, how do you say this? We try to uh, avoid sometimes consent because of the threats of manipulated reactions or manipulated results. Okay? But okay, in research ethics, it's a rule that you must always seek for the consent of any informant. Next slide, please. So, how is qualitative research results interpreted? So, the researcher offers his or her own interpretation of what is going on. through adhering different philosophical statutes of qualitative research, positivist, naturalist, uh, inquisitive. Okay, we still adhere to that while doing our own interpretation of what is going on. Okay, the focus is on understanding and explaining beyond that which can be stated with certainty. We try to understand. The end goal of a qualitative research is really trying to describe and to understand. While we understand and describe, we try to describe and understand the results in qualitative researches, we also try to connect it into our clinical practice. Now, for example, if I find that my client who is PLHIV is experiencing stigma, even to me as a healthcare professional, that's a really useful clinical finding because I could educate my colleagues, I could educate other healthcare professionals that we must practice transparency, or we must practice sensitivity into handling these types of clients. So we could do that by doing qualitative researches, and the results of that will prove us that they are really experiencing this or that. Okay? So because of that, researchers develop hunches about relationships that can be used to formulate tentative propositions or tentative notions about the subject or the topic that you are studying about. Okay? So next slide, please. Okay, so this will be my last two slides. Now, this is very important. Now, I would like to focus on this. We talk about rigor. So, this has been the contest of quantitative researchers about qualitative researches that because qualitative researches lacks numbers and figures, it really does not translate into it really does not translate into something, or it does not really prove something. And they are really contesting that qualitative research is subjective in nature, which is true, but because qualitative researches is subjective in nature, we must try to do mechanisms to assure its rigor. Rigor is defined as its strength. We must try to do mechanisms to check the strength of our qualitative researches. So one is openness. We must try to see to it that our research is really free from bias, and the results of the study were really from the respondents themselves. There has been cases that in qualitative researches, because they have not saturated the results, they tried to manipulate, or they try to insert their own statements. No, that is not allowed in qualitative research, because that is a violation of qualitative rigor. So we must try to be open. Everything must be from the informants themselves. Next, for us to assure that the rigor is really maintained, we try to stick from a specific approach or philosophical perspective. If you are phenomenological, you must stick to it until the end. Okay? Or if you are positivist in nature, you must be positivist up to the end. And you do not try to, as much as possible, you must not try to match anything. Because that affects the rigor of a qualitative study. Next, a very important term in qualitative research is data saturation. Data saturation is defined as when we already reach the peak, or the responses were almost always the same. Okay, now for example, if you are doing a study on sandwich economy is defined as caregivers who were not paid because that is their role. There are mothers, they are grandparents, they are under the sandwich economy. They are under the sandwich economy uh, sector. They are not paid. So what do they feel? Okay, kunyari, for example, they mention to you that they feel na pagod ako palagi, na hindi naman ako nababayaran. it then the responses are always the same, it means that you already saturated the data, or you already reached data saturation. Okay, that's the prime response, na they are really tired because they were not paid, or because that is their internal duty to do that, and they are really not paid. Okay? The current tense now into qualitative research is doing or going to multiple sources of data. Okay? This is another aspect of research in which mixed methods is already done. Very popular is triangulation. Okay, you have a quantitative data, and you back it up with a qualitative data, and then you try to triangulate, or you try to mix match the qualitative data and the quantitative data. Next slide, please. Why do we need to see to it that the study has very good rigor, or has a very good qualitative rigor? Because rigor is impacted by the following. No, if you are inconsistent with your methods or philosophy, the results of the total results of your qualitative study will be affected. Poorly developed methods, you have lack of data collection time, you rush the data collection, and you really did not saturated the data. You have improper data collection methods or data collection instruments, and failure to consider multiple sources of data. And with this, I hope that I have enlightened you, or I have shared to you different things about doing qualitative researches in healthcare. Really, doing qualitative researches in healthcare will help our individual professions grow, okay, grow, and it will help us really understand what is happening into our professions, which are really beyond numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Roland Sardan, for discussing the guidelines on how to do the qualitative research for health sciences. And I'm actually seeing a lot of health science students commenting, and I know that your presentation will help them on their future researches. So without further ado, let me introduce to you our last speaker. So for our last speaker, she graduated as cum laude and has a leadership awardee with bachelor's degree in arts and mass communications major in communication at St. Paul University, Manila. Again, she graduated cum laude with bachelor's degree of arts in public administration at the University of Santo Tomas. She is currently taking up her doctor's of philosophy in communication at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City. Also an active member of Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research Incorporated and Philippine Communication Society. A college professor to numerous universities such as San Sebastian College of Qualitative Cavite, St. Paul Seminary Foundation, and Far Eastern University, Manila. And now she is the program chairperson for Bachelor of Arts in Communication of St. Dominic College of Asia to give us some guidelines in using qualitative approach to data collection in social science. Please welcome our featured doctor as well, Professor Michelle Ann Santo Tomas.
Thank you, Professor Aguilar,
Hello.
and thank you, Dr.
Hello.
Balsicas of the Research Office for making this event possible. VP Rowe and Professor Sardan were able to lay down different methodological options in qualitative research, and I will discuss further on phenomenology. This is, can we show the slide, the first slide? This is a 3-second video I took, sorry, the first time I fly alone. It was a 1-day trip, and I took this video as I see that side of the plane's wing took off as sunrise ascends over the sea of clouds. A surreal moment for me, being it a first time to fly alone. It would also be my first time to land alone in a place I haven't been to. A planner as I am, I ask people about the airport, the place, the people in that place. And David Stewart, author of the book Exploring Phenomenology, started the chapter of his book saying, anyone about to venture forth on a new journey would be well advised to get a general idea of where he is going, to grasp the lay of the land, and to familiarize himself with some of the principal landmarks. And for us, I know I've seen a lot of questions in the comment box earlier since VP Roa started to discuss about qualitative research. And for us who will be understanding a new field of research, a good place to begin with, as any, is the meaning of the term phenomenology itself. Next slide. So, ayan. So, good morning. I hope you'll stay with me. I'll try to make it as quick as I can. And I'll discuss in brief what is phenomenology. So, it's derived from two Greek words. The first one, as you see on your screen, phenomenon, which means an appearance, and ayan, logos, which means reason or word. So, therefore, if we coin these two ideas, we get, can we click pa? Yeah. So we get it is a reasoned inquiry which discovers the inherent essences of appearances. I think we've been hearing these words earlier: experience, essences, appearances. But what is appearance? And Stewart says that this question leads to one of the major themes of phenomenology. Next slide, please. He said that an appearance is anything of which one is conscious. He said, yeah, anything at all which appears to consciousness is a legitimate area of philosophical investigation. Professor said, sorry, that was also mentioning about philosophy, that it has to be, you have to stick in a philosophy. Maybe he was talking about what is your ontological view? Saan ka ba talaga? Are you in that that there's a real world, or that there's no real world? No, and that he also said that an appearance is a manifestation of the essence of that of which it is the appearance. So this means, okay, that the essence would be revealed from my personal encounter to an object. Okay, meaning the chair that I am sitting on, and probably kayo din, is not just a chair with four legs or a furniture to be sued for seating. In phenomenology, the definition of this chair will suffice only depending on how it appears on my encounter with the chair. Okay. However, other philosophical points of view have refused to make this move. As you can see from your screen, no? May mga contestants, they said, conscious itself is not an object among other objects of or objects in nature. And why is that? The object of nature is physical, no? And the only quantifiable is the physical. And consciousness is not physical. No, it's not something that we cannot quantify. Yung awareness ko, for example, with the laptop and the cell phone, no, it's not physical, but it's something that is mental, something that I experience. No? A friend also explained, no, in number 2, ayan, he also explained yung pain, no, it's something that is not quantifiable. Although, no, we have, for example, CT scan and chemical reactions, we can measure those. Pero yung pinaka-experience ng pain, no, but I remember, maybe the health scientists can correct me with this. But whenever we see a doctor, the doctor will ask us, no, from 1 to 10, how will you rate your pain? No, but may mga bagay na hindi natin pwede i-reduce to quantity. Moving forward, therefore, phenomenology does not limit its investigations only to those realities which are objective, in a materialistic or naturalistic sense. Phenomenology offers a considerable broadening of the range of philosophical inquiry. No, they rather begin with the content of consciousness. Saan ba nagsisimula lahat? Okay. So thing is, can we proceed two slides forward? Ayan. We will undergo various types of experiences, including our perception, our imagination, our thought, emotion, desire. Dami nga nating nararamdaman ngayon. Ang dami nating na-experience ngayon. Sabi nga ni VP Roa kanina, no, this is a chance to, learn more because we are experiencing this pandemic. And sabi nga dito, no, sometimes I'm gonna go, because it's freaking me out sa dami ng nararamdaman natin ngayon. This is the domain of phenomenology is on this range of experiences. Okay, experiences includes not only passive experience, like what you see, what you hear. No, experience is also active experience, like walking or kicking a ball. These are considered as experiences and can be considered as phenomenological points for study. Stanford Encyclopedia, forward po, explains conscious experiences have a unique feature. And what is that? It's, you can see on the screen, we experience them. We live through them or perform them. Other things in the world we may observe or engage, right? But we do not experience them in the sense of living through or performing them. This experiential or first person feature is an essential part of the nature and structure of phenomenology. And Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy adds, the range will be specific to each species of being. O kaya sinasabi, paulit-ulit din kanina sinasabi, titigil tayo pag may pattern na tayong nakikita from our informants. Right? Kasi doon natin malalaman na, ito yung nakikita kong pattern. I've made a study for single mothers. So, pagka may lumabas ng pattern, paulit-ulit na silang lumalabas, now we can say, oh, I've had enough informants. Now I will go into interpreting my data. Okay. All right. So, to regard the whole as phenomena, we are interested to study the world's meaning. All right. Sige, we can skip that. Okay, we can also skip Husserl already po. I'd like to focus on the approach of phenomenology. Next slide. Ayan. So these are 4 things that you just need to remember in terms of phenomenology. Ask yourself right now. First, in doing phenomenology, it is characterized by the attitude of you as a researcher, of openness for whatever is significant for the proper understanding of the phenomenon. Nung wala tayong sabihin na, ay, hindi ko isasama yan. Because the objectivist point of view will do that. No, I'll only study this. But in phenomenology, kung ano man ang sumulpot doon sa habang ikay nag-i-interview or nagko-conduct ng data gathering, open ka na ilagay siya doon sa iyong data. Number 2, the ascertaining of variables operating in an experiment or research situation can be accomplished only after the research is completed, no, not before. Unlike ito yung sinasabi din ni Professor Sardan earlier, that in objective kasi you are already putting down, or this is how I will, it's structured, no? But in phenomenology or qualitative, it's not structured. Number 3, the phenomenologist does not test hypothesis. I will not dwell into that even more because na-explain na rin siya ni Professor Sardan earlier. And number 4, must approach his subject with no structured expectations, ayan, of how an object should be described. No, like what I did, single mother. Ganito yung na-experience ko eh. So dapat ganun din yung na-experience niya bilang single mother. No, you have to respect kung ano ang kanyang. You cannot set boundaries and expectations on her or his sharing of his or her own experience. Lahat ay may kanya-kanyang experiences. Okay, next slide. Okay, I'll skip this na explain na rin ito kanina. Okay, and to understand it better, ayan, how a phenomenology study takes place, I will try to present the methods vis-a-vis with one local social science studies. I mean, 2 local social science studies. As you can see from the screen, I will cite Rowena Wald, a phenomenological research design, and then the 2 local studies that I will present to you so you can understand better how we do it is the first one, the phenomenological look at the experiences of Filipina correspondents or internet brides. Okay, and then the other one is a triad of Filipino adolescent zones of lived experiences of information and communications technology. So maybe I am using social sciences as an example here, but it is, you just try to look at the methodology and try to see how you can actually apply it in your own field or area of study. Okay, let's skip the next slide. All right, let's proceed po dun sa table. Okay, meron po akong slide dyan na may table. First one, in locating the research participants or informants. Okay, Professor Dan already gave us an overview about this. Just to make it more specific with phenomenology. So in phenomenology, how do you locate informants? We don't call them respondents. We call them informants. Okay, Professor Sardan mentioned that earlier. The phenomenon dictates the method, including even the type of participants. Okay, and looking for those who have had experiences relating to that phenomenon that you want to research on. So, say for example, in that first research on the experiences of Filipina internet brides, those who have agreed to participate are those that they included in their as their informant. Okay, and but they said that they are Filipino descent, no, and have been married to a Caucasian man. Okay, they also give some criteria in there, right? But as to how many, no, they did not put it there. They did not give limit because again, we have to see patterns, and we stop when we already see patterns. With the other research of ICT naman, there are no rules for sample size. Remember this in qualitative inquiry. No, I have two students asking me, Miss, paano ba yun? Three is okay. VP Roa said that. Sometimes three is okay. No, may pattern ka na kasing nakikita. No, hindi siya na you will go into a kukuha ka ng population and then get a formula to be able to get a sample. No, it depends on the study. Okay. However, I believe kasi naalala ko na that this study still conducted, it's purposive, pero they still targeted 60 participants. Adolescents representing 2 Catholic schools from NCR and Region 2. Okay, yeah, so we see here that they chose senior high school students and they were randomly selected by their principals. Okay, and they said naman, they explained that they follow this research protocol, which is a little bit more objective than subjective, but just to ensure that there's a high degree of homogeneity in participants' reaction. All right, let's move forward. How about in data gathering? Unstructured, in-depth phenomenological interviews. Ayan, sinabi din ni Sir Sardan earlier. You can do that in phenomenology. Participant observation. Isisingit ko lang because I did participant observation with Fisher folks in Cavite. And sinabi din ni Sir Sardan earlier na you need to be with them. No? Because you want to get, since this is interview, you want to get the real essence of the phenomenon, right? So I remember when we did participant observation, my professor really gave us said na, oh, nako, baka mahiya sila, no? Because these are Fisher folks, baka mahiya sila if they know that they're being recorded and all that. So you have to balance ethics and at the same time getting the right or not the right, but the real information that you want to appear that needs to appear in your research. Snowball sampling, remember that VP Roa explained that earlier. And then with the other research, they conducted interviews. But again, observation is a method in itself. For the single mother parents, I conducted a participant observation during the mom and the child during their dinner time. Okay. And then it has to be audio recorded. And please take note of field notes. Can we advance the slide? Okay, field notes. Ano yung field notes? It is important to note that field notes are already a step toward data analysis. Morgan remarks that because field notes involve interpretation, they are properly speaking. When you go there, when you do the interview, no, you record the interview, but you jot down notes also of what's happening around, how is she reacting to it. So field notes in itself. So there's observational notes, and as you can see in your slide, there's also theoretical notes, meaning as the researcher thinks or reflects. No? This is my note. The theoretical notes are my notes. The observational notes is what I observe from my informants. Okay. And then there's also methodological notes and analytical memos. So all of those, basta in doing qualitative, dapat parati kang merong journal with you. Notebook. Okay. On the internet brides, the participant was situated and the audio recorder was set up. So important yan, no? Nabanggit naman na yan kanina. So maybe we can skip that. And then on the explicitation of data, I'd like to highlight this because we are using data analysis as a term, but I've read that there's caution in analysis in qualitative research because there are dangerous connotations for it in phenomenology because the term analysis usually means breaking into parts, right? You're breaking into parts, and therefore often means a loss of the whole phenomenon. So whereas using the term explicitation of data, now it implies an investigation of the constituents of phenomenon while keeping the context as a whole. No? Hindi nawawala yun as a whole. So in the explicitation of data, there are 5 steps. Yep, can we move that? Ayan po. So the first one is bracketing. No? Naintindihan nyo na yan kanina, no? Phenomenological reduction. Because it's actually, there's a philosopher who said that it's impossible for you to actually get away, no, from the experience because you somehow baka na experience mo din siya, but you cannot be biased. So you write them down. Now, in a qualitative research, actually, I've done this research again for Filipino single mothers. My professor asked me to give this to write this bracketing at the front page of my paper. So it's my statement saying that I am a single mother myself and all that. Delineating unit of meaning, clustering of units, meaning, and summarizing, and then getting themes. So how do we see that? I'll show it to you. Can we forward po dun sa slide na may table 1? Para lang po mabilis na lang na makita ng mga bata kung paano siya. Ayan. One more click po para mag-zoom in siya. Ayan. So these are 3 examples of phenomenological analysis. So you can see there, una, they put down the quotations. Okay, and when you put down the quotations, this one hindi naman siya necessarily per sentence eh. No? And it's not per response as well. Tingnan ninyo kung ano yung this one kasi per sagot, no, of each participant, again without identifying the names of the participants, no? You give them codes. So may quotation ka muna, no, linya mo yung quotations. An Excel file will be helpful. Kung di ka sa Excel, maggawa ka ng table sa Microsoft Word. Quotation, lagay mo lahat dyan ano yung mga responses, and then on another column you put meaning units. This one, ayan, second column, meaning units. So for example, number 1, he trusted me when it comes to financial situation. I'm the one doing all the bills and the budgeting in the house and all that. So what's a meaning unit for that? So her husband trusted her when it comes to their finance, and she pays for the bills and does the budgeting in the house. So what category? On the third column, you write a category for that. And the category, may question kanina, no? How will you come up with themes and categories? I've also had students na from quotation na jump into themes. No, that's not the case. You see that it's as explicit as this. You need to be very keen in doing this interpretation. So meaning units, saka ka pala come up with a category. And the category that Acosta and Demanari put in here is that connection with her future husband. And then the theme is connecting with her husband. So nakita nyo na magkaiba yung category and themes, no? So what if you stop or you jump into themes, but it's actually just a category? Okay. So dapat maging careful kayo. Matagal na proseso siya, mahabang proseso siya. Sabi nga ni VP Roa kanina, no, highlighter pa siya, putting marks, no, sa pinaka-transcription ng interview para lang ma-sure na walang naiiwan na data. You have to be organized in doing qualitative research. I remember my partner and I even did walling in our qualitative. So itong quotes na to, we did not just do it on our Word or Excel. We place it on the wall, cut it and place it on the wall and see the meaning units, where we're going to put them, and then category, and then themes. Okay, sabi nga ni VP Roa kanina, no, sometimes manually doing it is better. All right, and I just want to jump into the results. Like in the Internet Brides, can we jump na po forward? Findings in the study, forward pa po, were organized into two sections, no? Bracketing of the researcher and obtaining descriptions from the themes. Ayan. And then for ICT naman, the use of both cool and warm analysis, interesting themes related to the views and experiences of the selected group of Filipino adolescents. Ayan. So, collective articulations, verbalizations, and musings revealed three distinct but interrelated conceptual zones. Okay, so next slide is why phenomenology in social science research. Okay, I will cite Langsdorff in 1994. Actually, he asked why phenomenology in communication research. Okay, and the first one he said is constitution. Okay. Or even perhaps even in try to see what you can get, because I know that we have lots of students from the health sciences as well. In contrast to construction or creation, we have constitution. Okay, the central concern is how social reality forms in human interaction with the environment, in particular communicative interaction. No, kaya ang saya nung sa Fisher folks na ginawa kasi habang naghahayuma sila, no, kung familiar kayo sa paghahayuma, ako din ay naghahayuma kasama nila, pero nakikinig ako sa kanilang kwentuhan. This conceptualization of social reality as constituted includes attention to the formation of persons and things. Okay, aside from constitution, there's reflexivity. Inherent in mundane as well as research life, reflexive questioning of what is present. No, ano ba yung hindi gaano pang na-explore? Parating ito yung ginagawa natin ng research. What if we start looking at this phenomenon, okay, within a specific inquiry and research in general? And then there's interpretation. The researcher asks how the phenomena are and how they could present themselves otherwise. Findings must be arguably plausible interpretations given the particular context and tradition within which the research occurs. And lastly, phenomenological research seeks to understand meaningfulness. Meaning. Ang sarap pakinggan, ano? Yung akala mo palang walang pakahulugan, meron pala. Hahanapin mo pala yung kahulugan nung experience na yon, nung activity na yon. Halimbawa, paghahayuman ng mga mangingisda, nadadaanan natin sila dito sa Cavite, just passing by, akala natin nag-ayos lang sila ng nets. But in my research, I was able to extract that in those kwentuhan, there's resilience building up from this community. Resilience. So there's meaning pala. Yun ang masaya sa qualitative research. Okay. So, as Langsdorff put it, can we proceed? Phenomenology in research tells us that we need to do nothing less than revise our convictions, right? The task expand and increases in importance. We are no longer concerned with what people say, right, about things, but also what is said in order that those people and those things are present for saying and being said about. That's quite malalim. So if you're interested to understand more about phenomenology, I suggest that you read Exploring Phenomenology by David Stewart as a start, because he was able to explain it very well on how we do phenomenology in research. Next slide, these are my references. Yeah, okay, so yeah, that's it. That's my sharing for phenomenology qualitative research. Social sciences, but again, can also be used in health sciences. Thank you. Sir Richard?
Thank you, Professor Michelle and Santo Tomas, for discussing the guidelines on using the qualitative approach to data collection in social science and phenomenology. Okay, so we would like also to thank the Office of the Vice President for Research, Extension and Linkages for initiating this webinar, and also to all our speakers, Dr. Marinel T. Roa, Professor Roland L. Sordan, and Professor Michelle Ann Santo Tomas. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and insights on the essential elements of quality research, how to conduct qualitative research for health science, and our last topic was using qualitative approach to data collection in social science. Lastly, to all our viewers, thank you for staying in and learning with us throughout the three topics. Again, just a reminder for you to get your digital certificates. please don't forget to answer our short survey, which links are posted by St. Dominic College of Asia page at the comment section down below your phone or at the right side of your computer screen. Okay, and we also want to invite everyone again for another webinar happening on October 10 at exactly 1 p.m. So the next topic will be positive emotions and well-being possible during pandemic. So this is a very timely and relevant topic for us right now since we are all dealing with this pandemic. And this will be tackled with our by our resource speaker, Professor Marie Kila, our registered psychometrician. Okay, so please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell for regular updates. Like our Facebook page, that is www.facebook.com/St. Dominic College of Asia, and visit our website www.stdominicollege.edu.ph. Okay, this has been Ishan Perez Aguilar. Stay safe, healthy, and God bless everyone. Now signing off.